All right, so I'm going to be demonstrating how to use both white and black charcoal. And what you can see here is number one, what we're going to be drawing, a nice little green pepper. I love drawing green peppers. Sometimes it drives people crazy, but I think they've got really great forms. They make really interesting shadow shapes. It's got a lot of contour, so I think that's a great object for you to start with for your drawing. We have both our black charcoal pencil, our white charcoal pencil. We have a white charcoal stick. We might not use that too much on this drawing, but it is a good tool to use. We have three different erasers here. The one that you're going to use the most is the kneaded eraser. And this is really my go-to when I am doing any charcoal drawing. We'll demonstrate how you dab versus smear. So that's why I love the kneaded eraser. Your Mars plastic, whether it's in the big stick form or if you're using something for small details, can work, but it's that smearing that can be tricky. So you really want to make sure that you're using these minimally once you've already taken most of your material out using that kneaded eraser. Okay, so now that you can see what I'm going to be drawing, I'm going to put this off camera and we'll get started. You see we have a neutral toned paper here. This is really great for this application where we're going to be using the white pencil for our highlights, the tone, this middle gray for our midtones within our drawing, and then the black charcoal pencil for any of those dark values, any of that shadow, core shadow, etc. I'm going to start out using my white charcoal pencil for the initial drawing. I find that you really can go either way, but the white is a little bit more forgiving when we're thinking about how the black charcoal can go over top of it. So I'm going to start out by drawing those major forms that I see within my pepper. Always think about going really general to specific. I'm going to do this really quickly. We don't want to be here all day looking at this, but again, I'm getting those major shapes down of my pepper form. I've got the stem, really comes over and blocks a lot of what I see here. Get that down there. And even though charcoal is not as forgiving as graphite, we still have a lot of play within these forms, and this actually comes up a little bit more. So I can still do a lot of adjustments even when thinking here in these kind of initial moments there. Getting all my major shapes, a little bit of the cast shadow here. That's going to be a little more irregular. I can get to that in a minute. Give myself just a little bit of a horizon line so that it looks like our pepper is a little more grounded. All right, I'm going to go ahead and use my white pencil and just hit up some of the biggest highlights that I see. And then I'm going to bring this back in towards the end. The local value of our pepper is relatively dark overall, so this drawing will have mostly our midtones and which is that value of the paper, and then a lot of that dark that we're going to use, that black charcoal. So just a few highlights. I'll do the ground plane also in the white, but we'll get to that in a minute. So just a couple bits to give me some reference points. Now I'm really going to go in with my black charcoal here and think about those large shadow shapes. Again, going general to specific. I'm not going to go super dark right from the start. Remember, you want to build up those values. You'll also see that I'm trying really hard not to, except for on those outlines, not to have my black charcoal and my white charcoal blend. Remember in those other demonstrations that I've done for you where you can see what that looks like when they physically blend and how that can become chalky? We want to really avoid that for this drawing. I'm going around the entire piece and really mapping out where I see those largest areas of contrast. You see that I'm also using kind of like a hatching mark type of initial application. This will become more solid as we go through, but it's a good way to start. I'm going to go ahead and get that under kind of coarse shadow I see from some of the stem, the tip of it here, in the back space as well. Start to see those forms taking place. I've got some lines, some linear elements. Again, not pressing too hard yet with that pencil because I want to give myself the opportunity to be able to adjust. Let me adjust that shape there. I can see where it's hitting that ground plane. Let this coarse shadow come to this edge. Comes up, a little more pressure here, down around. We've got this area behind is darker. So remember, it's always a series of lighter, darker, so that you can start to get those forms. So see how that's starting to plot out. I'm going to go ahead and really get this cast shadow down too. Remember, your coarse shadow and your cast shadow are one of those darkest areas. This is a good spot too where I could use a charcoal stick that could help with a large area. But we're just going to stick with our pencil for right now. Try to make sure that the direction of my mark gets lost in there. And again, just giving me a general sense of that shape. I'm going to go ahead and do the same for where I've got that highlight. And this is going to help you see that pepper form really sit up and above. And you notice I do go right up to that line, but then I make my mark so the line starts to disappear. Let me show you with, I'm going to break this. So I could go ahead and use my stick on that wide side here, and you see I got a lot of material down real quickly. I want to make sure that once again I am not blending into the black I already have, and then if I have a tighter area here, I'll come back in with my pencil. Trying hard not to lean my hand down and smear what I've already got down on my paper. You can see that texture of the page. Remember, that's really important for keeping our material on here. Anytime we're using charcoals or pastels, you want some tooth, some texture to that. So you can see how that's starting to really come alive. Now I'm going to get much more specific. Again, this is my really quick rendition, so when you're doing yours, you're going to take a lot more time for each area. But let's see what we can come up with. My stem is relatively light. I'm going to go ahead and put the biggest highlights on that, start to denote that. Back here we've got a lot of light that's hitting as well. I see a bit on this side too. And remember, it's really just about gauging that light to dark, leaving those mid-tones to be that actual mid-tone of the paper. Green pepper, it's not very light overall, but I want to make sure that we can see it against the other forms. And so now I'm going to go back in with these dark values, leaving those reflected light and building it deeper and deeper cores. I'm really looking at those structures. Dark to light, dark to light, dark to light. Really thinking about not necessarily outlining, but where do we see those value shifts? Now, let's say right here, I've gone too far and I can't denote between my front and my back. So we're talking about where we can use that kneaded eraser and pull that material off. So see how I just press down and pull up? I can get the white charcoal, the black charcoal. I squish my kneaded eraser back together again, and I'm just pulling that material off. If I used this, there's more smearing and it's pushing the material into the page, and that's what I don't want either. So that's why I really like to use that kneaded eraser. Then I can come back in, my tooth and structure is still there. I can readjust what I need to be seen in my form and continue to build that value. Changing direction a little bit. And really start to bring that together. Now I'm not going to completely finish this piece, but I want you to see a fair amount of structure. I'm going to really start building in those darker values over and over again. Okay, so here's another example that went just slightly further, so you can see where we still have that tone of the paper, we have dark value, light value, we're starting to get that dimensionality within the object. I'm not letting the white charcoal and black charcoal interact, they are keeping their separation. And we really want to see where that, that structure of the paper, the value of the paper is at play in the total of that drawing. Okay, and then we keep going.